This is Linux In-Laws, a podcast on free Libre open source software, broadcasting from the United Kingdom and Germany.
Welcome to Linux In-Laws, Season 2, Episode 40, Martin. This is more than two.
Almost 41, yeah.
Yeah, this is almost 41, and this is way more than 5 years in the making, right?
Yeah, well, it's going to be more interesting when we get to 42, right? But it's going to be a special episode.
So why would that be, Martin?
Oh, 42 is the answer to everything, as you know.
And why is that?
It's, I don't know, someone wrote it in a book once, but there we go. Whether it's true or not.
You know that this is a kind of misconception, right?
I suspect it is.
Because 42 is not the answer to everything. Exactly. A, it's a piece of fiction, and of course, B, that assumption is wrong, as we all know. Mm-hmm. At least the people who read the book. Younger people, who do not have a clue what we're talking about. It's a piece of fiction literature by the name of Martin? Martin Blank.
Adams.
Douglas Adams, exactly.
There we go.
The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
That one.
Which is the first book of a trilogy about space travel, goggle blasters, and some things we possibly cannot mention on the podcast because
Fort Prospect or whatever it was.
Fort Prefect, exactly, Martin.
Prefect, not the Prospect. Yeah. It's been a while since I've read it.
And of course, do you know where the name comes from, actually?
Well, it comes from a car.
Indeed. And which one?
The Fort Prefect.
Which was made when?
In the US in the 50s or 60s? 60s.
And no, actually, it was done actually in the UK, if I'm not completely mistaken.
What? No. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. But yeah.
UK, US, what's the difference exactly? They all speak English anyway.
They do. Yes, and they have the same trade deals as well. Right?
We're recording this in the year 2038. The UK ceased to exist in 2025.
Oh.
At the end of 2025, because a guy called Donald Trump decided
Are you not confused with Canada?
No.
Or Greenland. Something like that.
Exactly. A guy called Donald Trump decided because he couldn't get hold of Canada, never mind Greenland, to simply buy the UK.
And any old island.
Exactly. Martin immigrated, I think, in September of that year.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Smart move, if I might
ready then. Yeah.
No, jokes aside, we're still recording this in May of 2025, I think, anyway. Okay, but this is not a show about politics, strangely enough, but rather about free Libre open source software.
It is.
And tonight's project is actually Chris ranting about, supported by Martin, I hope, about FLOSS in the educational sector in terms of in the educational space. Is that what I'm looking for? Yes.
Yeah, space sector.
The background basically being a couple of years back, I taught a free Libre open source software seminar at the local university in Frankfurt, also known as the University of Applied Science. If you mention the old German name, you will be decapitated. But probably post-production cuts this out.
Frankfurt isn't in Eastern Germany, is it?
There's two Frankfurts actually, and I'm talking talking the one that you visited and where you did introduce raisin bread and cheese to a local bakery.
Yes.
Which I might add has subsequently forced to close.
Okay. They obviously didn't do the marketing very well. Okay.
Exactly. Because
we should really give them some tips on that.
I mean, Martin, the tragedy is actually that the neighborhood has been flooded with Dutch people.
Oh.
And never mind your lesson. Exactly. Never mind your lesson. The bakery didn't take any note of it. Dispensed with the raisin bread and cheese.
Well, that was their mistake. That's what out of
exactly.
Clearly.
Martin, spot on. And subsequently had to close because of lack of revenue.
There we go. Yeah.
Too bad. I mean, you gave them that hint about 3 years ago or something.
Yeah.
But of course they didn't take note, as Germans normally do not from Dutch people for some strange odd reason. But back to the subject at hand.
Anyway,
exactly.
Yes.
So, no. I mean, I'm talking about Frankfurt am Main rather than Frankfurt on the Oder? At Oder?
I don't know.
Frankfurt Oder, sorry, exactly. Which is a small hamlet, and of course the people will probably kill me if they find out where I live, who live there, between Berlin and Poland. As a matter of fact, it's actually on the Polish border.
I see.
Said Frankfurt Oder, because the Oder, as we all know, is the river separating Poland from Germany. In the eastern part of the country, I might add. But we are not talking about Frankfurt Oder, but rather Frankfurt am Main, the place where I happen to live occasionally, if I'm not traveling.
Okay.
And as I said, where said University of Applied Sciences is. So before I start my rant, yes, people, it will get worse, but stay put anyway. Martin, you have kids, right? You have about, 20 of them? Or is it less than that?
Not quite that many, but yeah. Anyway, yes, there are children, yes.
Yes, so what is the situation like in the UK when it comes down to computer science in secondary schools / universities?
Okay, so computer science is taught in the UK, yes. Mainly using Python, to be fair.
As the first programming language?
Yeah.
Okay.
In terms of, computer science, yes, they do go into a few bits and pieces like networking and stuff like that. But it also covers things like Microsoft Word and all this kind of palaver, which seems a bit strange to me. But there we go. That's what they seem to do.
Okay. How far do they go when it comes down to programming in Python?
Well, good question. I mean, this is GCSE level, right? So it's not.
It's secondary school leading up to A levels, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
or the people not living, they can listen to this podcast. Exactly.
So you don't. They just get to learn how to use a few modules and do a bit of logical programming, but there's no kind of massive thing about object oriented or classes or stuff like that, right? It's fairly straightforward at that level.
And the rest is creating PowerPoint slides and writing Word documents. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, it does cover some of the basics, right? Like just what are the computer components and what's binary and hexadecimal, those kind of stuff. Yeah, a little bit about data, but it's all very high level, right? Because of the age of the people, it's kind of it's that kind of level, and not your university detail, indeed.
And when it comes down to universities, do you have any insight of what's being taught there with regards to free libre open source software? In the
UK? It depends a little bit on what study you do, right? So if you're doing computer science or electrical component stuff, then obviously you're going to be more low level, and it tends to be C and things like that. But yeah, on the computer science stuff, it's the same as when we were doing it, right? Well, obviously not quite the same, but just the different types of languages that you have, and the different programming styles. So it doesn't really. It's not going to teach you C# or something like that, if that's what you're thinking. Yeah.
No, I mean, the reason why I'm kind of drilling down this is quite straightforward. When I taught this, and we're talking about...
hang on, what did you teach, by the way? Sorry.
Yeah, I taught actually a module in a bachelor course or bachelor study called Free Libre Open Source Software.
Oh, okay, sorry, that's the actual... Right.
Yes.
Wow.
So, okay, let me take a step back and let me shed some more light on the details of this bachelor. The bachelor, of course, is computer science, as the majority of the people listening to this podcast have probably guessed. And with regards to the overall outline of the curriculum, it's not that dissimilar from the stuff that I was taught all those 40 years ago. Yes, people, I'm old. Back when I did actually the German, what was then the German equivalent of the bachelor, as in I went to a University of Applied Sciences. That would be the modern name of it, but it's similar to the institution basically where I was teaching. So with regards to the overall curriculum, it was not that dissimilar in terms of it was actually, what can I say? How can I put this? Pretty much the same from a theoretical perspective in terms of, okay, your data structures and all the rest of it. But focus was still on proprietary stuff like MATLAB, for example.
MATLAB is widely...
exactly. On a good day, you would be kind of close to R.
R is... I mean, this is the difference between different universities, right? They have different, in a way, their own choices of what they want to focus on. But R are common ones. Even Java and stuff like Haskell, whatever, they come up in various different universities use them for different things, right? But back in our day, it was also Fortran and things like that, right? That was...
Yes, full disclosure, Martin is about 20 years, 20 years older than I am. I'm in my late 50s, and Martin is in his late 70s, I think.
Okay. You've clearly been doing some time travel again, I see.
No, jokes aside, okay. If I take a look at this university course that I was part of, as I said, a couple of years back, what really surprised me is actually, okay, yes, on the surface, they did much of the stuff that we did back then too. But if you drill down closer, in terms of deeper, you had all of these proprietary knowledge. So for example, if they wanted to get down to programming, when they had this kind of module called system programming or whatever it was, rather than using open source software in terms of GCC, CLang, what have you, they used actually Visual Studio. And I'm not talking about Visual Studio Code. I'm talking about Visual Studio in a Microsoft as a Windows-based environment. Exactly.
Where? Where?
This is how, exactly. Windows as an operating system, Visual Studio as the IDE, as in the integrated development environment, and C as the programming language.
Okay.
Never mind C#, which is, of course, a somewhat proprietary language.
Indeed.
And if I took a kind of an even closer look, I mean, people were using PowerPoint to do their presentations, push comes to shove, or even Google Slides if cloud-based.
Yes.
But the lack of open source software really concerned me, and this is basically what I find quite surprising, because I thought that at least at this University of Applied Sciences, things were slightly different.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? Yeah. That's it is surprising. I'm assuming the situation in Germany is the same, that each university does its own thing anyway.
That is correct. I mean, there are some rays of hope. When you do some traveling, you do come across these kind of different university settings where they do emphasize FLOSS in terms of they start from the very beginning. They start with open source components like what is Linux as an operating system, what is Linux as a development environment. If they write software for their projects, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say. So, do you have different types of universities in Germany?
We do. Yes.
So applied sciences is more of it's a less theoretical university. Is that fair to say, or not?
Yeah, there is three types actually of universities in Germany. But I reckon similar to the UK or even Ireland, you have universities of applied sciences, formerly known as Fachhochschule. This is kind of typical German term, where they offer two types of bachelor degrees in terms of your first degrees after leaving secondary school. you can go for a full-time degree with regards to, I'm just talking about computer science now. Different subjects may have different curricula. So I'm just talking about computer science. So the two types you have is essentially a full-time taught Bachelor of Computer Science. And then you have a mixture of a practical apprenticeship in a company, or at a company rather, and the other half is actually taught at this University of Applied Sciences. In German, that would be duales Studium, as in dual study, where this represents a mixture of a traditional German company-based, as an industry-based apprenticeship, and a more formal education in terms of a study at a university. And the third type is actually your ordinary university, not of applied sciences, but rather university in terms of a full-blown, and this is just my choice of words, a full-blown university like the University of Frankfurt, like the University of Munich, as an LMU and Technical University of Munich, that sort of thing, as in full-blown third-level education institutions that offer the range of degrees ranging right from bachelor to master to PhD. Because until a few years ago, only these type of universities would offer a PhD program. This is slightly changing in Germany, where you do have some University of Applied Sciences, and Frankfurt is one of them actually, where you can do, after you finish your masters, you can go on for a PhD.
Right. Of course.
And of course, when I talk about a PhD, I mean a PhD not in the taught sense, like offered in the UK and the US, I think, but I'm purely talking about a PhD done by research. As in, you do a lot of research, you come up with, all those years ago when I did a PhD, and that was, of course, a PhD by research, the idea was you turn the world upside down in your playground in terms of you find your field of interest, you do a lot of research, you come up with the shortcomings in that field, and you come up with a solution for the shortcomings. I'm simplifying things, but that's how PhDs work. Exactly. That was the rationale behind most of the PhD programs about 30 years ago, never mind today, in terms of you come up with something brand new that rocks the world. You tell the other people who have been doing research, I'm simplifying things now, to essentially fuck off because they didn't have a clue. I'm joking, people. What you essentially do is you take a very close look at the current situation of a field, you evaluate the current state of things, and then you come up with a proposal that addresses any shortcomings in that field. You publish your research, and off you go to a postdoc, as a postdoctoral thing, once you have concluded your PhD and have published the research. When I was doing the PhD, all those about 30 plus years ago at Trinity College in Ireland, the idea was actually that you get market validation in terms of that you get validation for your idea before you even started to write up your research. In terms of if you were heading into the right direction, the current state of things in terms of conferences, peer-reviewed journals, and all the rest of it would be able to tell you that. Funny enough, when I did the PhD, I found this quite challenging, let's put it this way, because you were forced, and that was the brutal ground rule then, to have 3 refereed publications in the market before you could even think about writing your thesis, writing up your thesis, never mind registering that for the PhD in terms of the degree.
Yeah, what's this got to do with open source?
And I'm just coming back to that in a moment.
Just checking. I was wondering if it...
And that would, of course, allow you to fail fast and then to come up with something new. But to answer Martin's questions, my PhD was exactly my first major touch point with something called Linux, because the experimental microkernel we were doing all those years ago, we were doing on Linux as a development environment and as a testing environment.
Okay.
Details including various research articles in terms of published research, and also the book I wrote, maybe in the show notes. Word of caution, people. Only read this if you cannot get to sleep at all. So if you're suffering from a severe bout of insomnia, this is actually something you want to read, because that will put you to sleep in no time. Try it and test it.
And yeah, if it still doesn't work, try listening to
the podcast. Exactly. No, jokes aside, I mean, this is basically what I came across: Linux, Perl, Python, in terms of writing test cases, and yes, Perl back in the day, and also tech.
When was this? Didn't you go to university in the 1960s? No,
no, actually, Martin, I didn't. That was you. Funny enough. No, that was kind of 90s. Started the PhD early 90s and finished it mid 90s.
I see, one of those long-termers. Yeah, okay.
Exactly. Only took me 30 years to conclude. No, Martin, no. I started the PhD in 93 and concluded in 96, which was lightning fast for the research group I did it at.
I see.
Because most of the...
I wonder where your taste of Guinness came from. Yeah. Okay.
Martin, what you mean is lack of taste of Guinness, because I didn't have much time then, because I published the second book, set up a small company, and also did the PhD on the side, all happening back in the Ireland in the kind of mid-90s.
Okay. Fair enough. Right.
Going back to the open source topic, before I completely derail this. No, I mean, that was basically a foundation where I came across things like LaTeX, where I used to do my PhD thesis in, to
LaTeX,
publish LaTeX and write the second book and all the rest of it. And as I said, Linux was instrumental for the research project that we were doing, and that kind of bug never has left me since, let's put it this way. And in contrast to current curricula, I mean, back in the day, you were free to roam in terms of when we did the architecture for the microkernel. Basically, we picked whatever was available in terms of the tooling and the tool chain that we used to develop the whole thing. And Emacs and Linux and some other tools like Perl and Python were at the very top of that list. I hope that hasn't really changed when it comes down to PhDs these days. But this is more like taking a look at the bachelor or master's education, which is, in contrast to a PhD, most of the time taught. In terms of people tell you what to do, taught in terms of teaching.
PhD?
No, I'm talking about masters and bachelors.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because in that case, you go to lectures, you get assignments, and you have to deal with these assignments and work on them. Then you get a score, or what is known as, I think, credit points these days, as in CPs. And if you have a sufficient level of CPs, you can go actually for your bachelor or your master's thesis. And that's the way it works with regards to taught degrees. I reckon not just in Germany, but also in the UK, Ireland, and the rest of the world, when it comes down to a third level computer science education.
Right. So...
I mean, you studied computer science too, no? Back in the days in the Netherlands. What was it like then, if you can remember?
Well, there was, of course, no particular focus on this is open source or this isn't.
So database were just Oracle?
No. What did we even use?
I mean, you got infected with Postgres after your first degree, right? Or your second degree?
It's interesting, yeah. We did obviously we did, maybe we just did the theory. Yeah, we just did the theory on databases with coordinate date.
So you didn't use any database at all? Okay.
No, not in practice. No. Yeah, I mean the kit was all deck stuff, if I recall correctly. So,
right, you did your masters in the 70s, right?
No.
I mean, if you're talking about deck, you're probably talking about PDP-11s, right? So it must have been
PDP-11, yeah, they still have PDP-11s, yes. But yeah, I mean, they were quite expensive back then, so they probably kept them for a few years.
I mean, or did you do
those 3 years?
Did you do your first degree in the 60s?
No.
Or did you do it actually in the 80s in the Dutch colony down in Africa or something?
In the early 90s, I graduated.
And they were still using PDP-11s.
Yeah, why not?
Because at that stage,
you don't need the latest kit.
They were considered ancient, Martin.
Yeah, but they still have CPUs and memory and all that kind of stuff. It's all the same.
Asking that again.
Now,
did you go down to Africa to a Dutch-speaking colony to do your first degree? I'm just wondering, because I mean, the PDP-11s would have been replaced with VMS-based systems as the Vexus of the world.
Yeah, but these machines were very expensive back then, if you recall. So they, you don't need to have the latest machine to learn.
Martin, PDP-11s date back to early 70s, if I recall correctly, or mid-70s.
Yeah, they're still computers, though.
And you used them about 15 years later, okay?
Indeed.
Wow. Word of advice, people, before you consider doing a degree...
They may not be using them anymore now, I'm not sure. I've been there.
Word of advice, people, if you consider doing a computer science in the Netherlands, computer science degree rather, please check out A, the university, B, the curriculum, and see the kit that they have on board. If the kit says still Vexus or PDP-11s, just stay clear. Go to a different place. My word of advice from my side.
Well, yes and no. I mean, the basic are the same. You can learn on any kits, really. So.
PDP-11s are ancient.
Yeah, they are now, yes. But they're probably still running. They're very reliable.
So people, exactly. People, if you check out the module plan, or whatever it's called these days, as in the curriculum. And if you see the exercise being done in a museum, just run. Just say. Speaking of museums, Martin, how's the household?
Say again.
Speaking of museums, how's the household? How's the household? Exactly.
Museums.
It's the place you go to when you can't get to sleep. Or...
I haven't been to a museum for a while, I have to say.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, what about you? You been to any museums lately?
No.
Oh.
But maybe I should, because, I mean, if there's such interesting things as PDP-11s, right?
You could probably find a PDP-11 in the museum somewhere.
Exactly.
I read it. Yes.
So, I mean, you have kids, right? So what did the kids use?
Wait.
Yes.
So you didn't notice, did you? But the PDP-11 is still in use in nuclear power plants.
That haven't been touched for the last 50 years. Exactly.
Exactly, yes, because nobody wants to, otherwise it may blow up. Yes.
I reckon if you dig deep enough, you will find PDP-11s also at Deutsche Bahn. And people...
is that why the trains are always not on time anymore?
No, that would be the UK, I suppose. So
I think the trains are actually better here than Germany now, to be fair. Yes.
So, Virgin, if you're listening, and if you actually have any PDPs still remaining, PDP-11s still remaining back in the, what's the word I'm looking for? Not cellar, but basement, exactly, to use the American term. Please do write in. The Linux in-laws are planning on an episode with regards to historical computing still in use.
Yes.
Good Deutsche plan might be at the very top of the list.
You can't
maybe Virgin Trains,
exactly.
But maybe Virgin Trains has something to offer you too.
Virgin Trains, they don't exist anymore.
I thought that what's called these days, Northeast Trains or service or something like that.
No,
as in the major train companies in the UK.
Yeah, it was all taken over by some other company. And it depends where you're going as well, right?
So some other company in the UK, as a train company, if you're listening, the email that feedback if you want to have the company featured on a future episode of the podcast, but only, and this is the prereq, only if you have a PDP-11 or an old VAC still in production. Otherwise, don't bother.
Good plan.
Coming back to the topic at hand, namely the use of FLOSS in third-level education.
Well, even more interesting, you can also, people are selling kits to recreate the PDP-11. Anyway, going back to education.
Yes, Martin. I have come across a project a couple of years back that used a cluster of Raspberry Pis to emulate a 370, or maybe actually a 390. If you're so inclined, as in an IBM mainframe.
Yes, indeed.
If you want to do that, fair enough. It's probably cheaper than the old iron, but I reckon with regard to speed, you don't want to put this in production, but rather give your local trustworthy IBM sales rep a call to ensure that you get the real deal. Even if that costs a few million more, don't worry about it.
Yes, they're not cheap, the old IBMs. Anyway.
And in addition to that, basically, you get a Linux-based LPAR as a logical partition right out of the box, pre-installed, in contrast to Raspberry Pi that is a cluster that you still have to feed with various SD cards.
Well, where's the fun in that? Yeah.
Of varying qualities, if I may add, in order to get this up and running. And then you still have this... You don't have this zero downtime guarantee, where actually IBM Z comes from in terms of the letter indicating high availability.
Okay.
And with that, any concluding remarks before we get to the feedback and the boxes?
The feedback.
We do have feedback. We actually have a job application, and we also have a chap offering to redo the website. But more on that in a minute. Exactly. Let's touch upon the concluding remarks first before we venture into this. Yes. Exactly. Before we venture into this even darker realm.
Okay. Right. Conclusions. Yeah. So it unfortunately is. I mean, even okay. So if you take the UK, there's this government directive that all departments should be using as much open source as they can, but lots of universities are sort of partly privately owned and run and all that kind of stuff. So
privately owned, okay.
Yeah, they have some other constructions. They're not pure.
Even the likes of Oxford and Cambridge, as in the most two prestigious universities in the UK.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, so that means that they can do what they like, and
So who owns them in that case?
I don't know, probably some rich people. But anyway,
yes, you would.
Those kind of details are not very interesting. Yeah,
they are, Martin. As a matter of fact, but don't worry about it.
It's the same in Germany, right?
Rich people do not own universities.
No. In terms of universities can do what they like in terms of curriculum and tools that they use, etc., etc.
I mean, to lament this even more, I think it was the year before last. I can't remember exactly, but they had this postfix Roundcube set up in terms of an email system, and then some Microsoft chap came in and convinced them that actually a cloud-based Office 364 installation with regards to Exchange and all the rest of it would be way better, including a replacement of Roundcube called Outlook Web Access would be way better than this postfix Roundcube thing.
Right.
Not surprisingly, about 6 months later, they suffered a compromise that took them down for about 1.5 months. Apparently, the vector used was some zero day in a Microsoft product stack. Yeah. So much for this smart move in inverted commas. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I may get this wrong. I might have gotten this wrong because, as I said, I'm just doing it. I just used to do a teaching assignment there, so I wasn't a member of staff in terms of vetted member of staff. So that was just my observation from the outside.
Yeah.
But given this kind of decision, it begs the question why. Because if you take down a university that has about 20,000 students. I might be wrong on the total number, but it's not small by any means. If you take this down for a couple of weeks in the mid of term, that has some serious implications for not just the students but also for the teaching staff. Never mind the administration.
Mm-hmm.
As you can imagine. So
not
all new stuff is good. Anyway, okay. Any more to add here before?
No, that sounds a good plan.
Okay.
Right. So the feedback then.
So before we get there, yes. So university, if you're listening, use more open source software. Exactly.
Yes.
Bottom line. Okay. The feedback, yes. The feedback, of course, being two people who wrote in.
Oh, did they?
Yes. A guy called Marcos. And he sent in of course, I won't mention any more details with regards to, sorry, actually, his name is not Marcos, but rather his last name is Marcos, but we're gonna, in the interest of data protection, we're gonna give
his last name is Marcos.
Exactly. We're gonna give
his first name.
We're gonna give the mobile and phone numbers a miss. But VC, because this is his kind of initials, VC. Thank you very much, first of all, exactly for your email, and he made a point basically of submitting this both in English and Spanish.
Oh, that's nice of him.
Yes, Marcus. Unfortunately, we are not hiring anymore because Martin burned all the VC money on cheap girls and expensive drugs.
Yes. Not VC money. Where did I miss this?
The seed capital, Martin, that we managed to acquire for kind of getting this off the ground.
Right, you mean
it was only a few million, so... No, Martin, it wasn't 25 quid, it was just kind of 2.5 million.
Oh,
but anyway, but exactly. Martin, I hope you kept the receipts for the travel expense claims.
Of course.
Excellent. No, jokes aside, people, before you, I mean, first of all, Marcus, or whatever your name is, fair play to you. Thank you very much for sending this in, but unfortunately, we're not in a position to hire anybody because, as we all know, marketing is getting fired by Martin as soon as I hire them. And I reckon...
Much cheaper not to hire anybody in the first place.
And I reckon... Exactly. And I reckon the same will go for any other positions, basically, that we decide to put out or publish. But anyway, by the looks of it, your CV goes down to technical expertise, but unfortunately, we are not in a position to, as I said, to progress with this with regards to... As a matter of fact, all of our code was written by an artificial intelligence as a large language model. Never mind the content. The last 45 minutes that you have been listening to is not Martin and myself, but rather some artificial intelligence making this up, exactly, because of cost reasons.
Yes.
Because we are severely in debt, because Martin blew it all on coke and girls. So unfortunately, we cannot hire people. Never mind marketing. Okay.
I prefer Pepsi personally.
Excellent, Martin. Okay. Yes. On to a much more serious thing.
Oh, is there more feedback, by the way?
Yeah, there is actually. Dirk wrote in.
Did he?
Yes, he did. If you're listening, I won't mention your second name, but apparently he listens to both, and here we go, Martin, to the GOCs and to us.
Oh, okay. GOC, are they still going?
Exactly. No, they are. Of course they are.
They?
Yes, Martin.
Do we need to wait another 2 years for
No. They only publish very infrequently.
Yes.
As in once in a blue moon. As in every couple of years, exactly. So, David and Thomas, if you're listening,
David
this
and Thomas, yes.
Exactly. If you're listening, we're still listening, and we're waiting for new episodes. Never mind when they come, exactly.
Been
so we do listen. And so does Dirk, by the way, before I forget. But Dirk has offered to redo the illustrations on the website.
Yes, good
Dirk.
plan. Good call.
No, Martin. Hang on.
Oh.
Dirk, while your offer is being much appreciated, unfortunately, we do not have the budget.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the grumpy old coders.
No, Martin. Martin, I'm not talking about grumpy coders. I'm talking about Dirk and his offer of redoing the illustrations.
Huh?
No, as you may have observed, Martin, the grumpy old coders redid their imaging and their website.
Indeed.
About 2 episodes ago, namely 2 years. Give or take a few.
Indeed, yes.
So, and Dirk is under the impression that we could do the same. Yes, Dirk. As I said, the offer is kindly appreciated, but
there's nothing wrong with the current ones anyway.
Exactly, but we much prefer the existing mugshots because they are not artistically enhanced as the GOCs, but rather paint us in the bland character mood, whatever you want to call it, as we are, right? So I'm afraid no artificial enhancing required.
No.
But we may keep you on the record just in case for any future requirements we may have. And if anybody thinking along the same lines, please write in. But, and this is important, because Martin blew it all in girls and drugs, we don't have any cash whatsoever. The only remuneration we might be able to offer is actually mentioned on the show. That's it.
Yes, that's we could do that. Yes, yeah.
As we did with Dirk.
Yes, well, we didn't mention his name though, so it's not much use to him. But then again,
but you see, Martin, this is the only Dirk that has written in so far with regards to this particular offer. So no Dirk writes in every fortnight with an offer to redo all the illustrations, image, what have you. No. So I reckon chances are that if Dirk listens to us, he knows who we are referring to.
Oh, yes, he will, but nobody else will. Anyway, that's fine.
Which is fine. Yes. Anyway, and Dirk, if you want to come on the show, by all means, write in and we have you on the show in no time. We have still a few open slots in 2027, I think, because I think 2025, 26 is almost fully booked. But there are still some open slots in 27. So by all means, Dirk, please write in and we'll schedule this as soon as possible.
Yes.
And with that, onto the boxes, Martin.
Martin. Yes.
What's your box, Martin?
My box is something called copper, or COPR.
That's metal, no? No, actually, that's double P, right? Exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
So it's copper.
And it's got an E in it, but I don't know how to pronounce it anyway.
So spell again, COPR. That's a droid, no?
No. This is a build system by Fedora, which allows you to build and host your packages and RPMs.
Yes. I came across this. It's kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? It's, SUSE uses something called Tumbleweed. That would be familiar, no? As in the same.
Nobody uses SUSE, but yeah, I believe you.
No, Martin, I'm talking about the build system. I'm not talking about the distribution itself. Very important.
Okay. Yes.
No, I mean, COPR is essentially looking after EPUB packages and more, right?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Because I came across it when I kind of was checking out some weird wireless issue back in the day. Actually, I think it was 38 or 37 of Fedora. And I mean, but please do tell more. How did you come across it, and why do you think it's important? It is, but.
Well, it's important because, if you have your project on GitHub and you want to create builds and releases, then you can do that for things like Ubuntu and stuff like that, right? Or Debian-based stuff. GitHub has integrations for this, but not for the Red Hat side. So if you want to make your open source projects available through RPMs, then you can do that with Copper. And of course, you can also integrate it with GitHub to do automatically and all that kind of stuff. But it's really handy, really good for distributing your source code so that people can install it without having to build it themselves.
But it only supports RPMs, right?
Correct. Yeah. So, but then you have with GitHub, you have the other problem that you can't
because
automatically build RPMs. So.
Tumbleweed supports more, but I might be mistaken on this one.
I don't know. I've never used SUSE. I'm glad to say.
Martin, you don't have to use SUSE. All you do is have to use Tumbleweed if you want to build packages for it.
Okay, fair enough. But
that's it.
Yeah, I don't want to do that either.
I see. Fair enough. Okay.
It's surprising it's not business, but anyway.
Indeed, Martin. Indeed. Not even Valky or some other interesting software.
What about it?
I mean, just putting the good word out there in terms of.
Valky was already a box for me before.
No, I'm talking about building it for different distributions.
Okay. Well, yeah, obviously it's built for many distributions and many people do it. But if you're, looking after your own open source project and you want to have automatic builds, you can go. As I said, you can go GitHub Actions and get Ubuntu or Debian-based builds. But if you want RPMs, you got to go outside of that. So
there you go.
In terms of automation, right? Obviously, you can build anything anywhere you want to, but if you want the automation, we're talking about the automation part here.
Yes, very much so, Martin. Of course. Yeah, my POX would actually be a movie called Molly and Max in the Future.
Okay.
Not sure if you've come across it.
It sounds like a science fiction movie. I haven't come across it, no?
No, actually, it's way better than it's one of these B-movie diamonds.
Okay. Why is it a diamond?
I was just getting there, Martin. Bear with me. Martin, you should be in the age bracket to remember a movie called When Harry Met Sally, like 60s, maybe even 70s. Meg Ryan and somebody else.
Meg Ryan? Is she still act? Is she not dead?
No, I'm talking about 60 years back now.
Oh, okay.
When you were young, and
movies were still in black and white then, weren't they?
Exactly. And I was just a hope in my parents' eyes or something. I don't know, or minds. Yeah. I can't remember. Anyway, no, jokes aside. I mean, Harry Met Sally rings a bell, right?
Yes.
As in the classic, exactly.
Yeah.
Picture this
was
sorry, go ahead.
Sorry? What was it called?
Harry Met Sally. When Harry Met Sally.
No, the one you...
No, the other one. When Molly...
The one you're actually talking about.
No, Molly and Max in the future, exactly.
Molly and Max. Okay, yep.
Okay. Imagine when Harry Met Sally... Max.
Okay.
So Molly and Max in the future. That's the exact title. Okay. Of course, people links in the show notes, if I can't remember.
Surely the AI will take care of the show.
Coming back to my point, Martin.
Oh, yes. Yes, do tell.
Imagine when Harry Met Sally fast forward about 100 years.
Right.
In a B-movie setting.
Okay.
But just way more. Sorry?
And why is it your box?
I was just getting there, Martin. If you wouldn't keep interrupting, we would be finished already. No, anyway,
I'm confused.
Okay, yeah. Martin, you always are. No worries. Okay, fast forward when Harry Met Sally about 60 years, make that 100 years. In a B-movie setting, but only way funnier than When Harry Met Sally, and then you pretty much have it.
Okay.
IMDb gives it about, I think, 6.8 or something. I would give it a solid 7.5. For the simple reason, it may look cheap on the first watching, but it will grow on you, especially when enjoyed with an aged Octomore whiskey. You want to drink about 2 liters of quality whiskey, exactly, and then enjoy the movie. No jokes aside, it's really hilarious, especially when it overcomes all the shortcomings of Harry Met Sally. Essentially, it's about to take away the mounting suspense. I won't give away too much, but essentially, it's about a couple that meets over the course of about 12 years, and finally or eventually, basically, stresses the fact that they actually do love each other. But it's quite interesting to see how they get there. Similar to When Harry Met Sally, but only way funnier.
Okay.
And that's my pox.
Very good. Very good. Sounds promising. Maybe you need to put a disclaimer on about the type of sense of humor that people have. But
the sense of humor is actually quite compatible because even I was able to enjoy it. And that says something.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, and with that, we should probably...
Martin will watch it and will report back in a future episode, I'm confident. I'm not too sure actually where you can get it, but I reckon either your local streaming service will do it, or maybe you can basically download it from Amazon Prime or something like that. I can't remember. And with that, Martin, we have come to the end of another brilliant and vibrant episode.
Yes.
And with that, see you on the flip side. This is the Linux In-Laws.
You come for the knowledge,
but stay for the madness.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you liked this feature presentation. If so, please spread the word. If not, please let us know. Feedback at linuxinlaws.eu.